Hi, and welcome to the Midday Market update for January 14th, 2021. My name's Kevin Hill here with Michael Vincent. As always, how are you doing, Michael?
Hey, I'm doing great. Welcome, everybody. Beautiful, a little cool winter day here in Freight Alley, right? A little freezing fog this morning. But yeah, it is. I can verify it is the 14th, Kevin. So you nailed that one. It is interactive too. So, get your questions and comments on what is it? FreightWaves LinkedIn and on Facebook as well. And we'll get those comments. We'll get those comments and address any questions you have. Pretty good show we got today, I would say. We got who we got today? We have Mark Sullivan and
Ken Sherman.
Yeah,
Ken Sherman from Intellitrans talking about raw materials, and then our friend Laurance Alvarado talking about warehousing and inventory levels. And then we'll have some segments here on the weather, just like every other episode, and the freight market with Zach Strickland and Anthony Smith. But let's jump right into the news with Andrew Cox and talk about trailer orders. And I think we set another record. If you take the entire Q4 of 2020, we have record orders, don't we, Andrew?
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. Preliminary net trailer orders for the month of December exceeded 40,000 for the fourth consecutive month. FTR reported preliminary trailer orders in the U.S. Of 41,700 units. That's 6% above an already high November number and 155% above December 2019. As you said, the 3 months that make up the fourth quarter from October to December, that span had the highest volume of trailer orders ever on record. Orders have surged in recent months, but it's important to remember that orders were near zero during April and May when the manufacturers were unable to open up due to the first wave of COVID-19. But now the elevated order backlog will keep manufacturers busy throughout the year and have them looking to increase production throughout the year. Trailer orders for the entire year reached 297,000 units, according to FTR. That's 50,000 units above the initial 2020 expectation that was set back in January, way before the pandemic wreaked havoc on the freight industry. As for the different modes, the orders for dry vans have been strong throughout the back half of the year. They set all-time records in both October and November. Refrigerated trailers have stayed in high demand with the elevated grocery demand and elevated e-commerce demand for groceries throughout the back half of the year. And we've seen a resurgence in flatbed orders as well, as we have this kind of blooming industrial recovery happening right now. We've seen PMI up to its highest level in 2.5 years in the US, and we're seeing industrial production finally start to ramp up. That should aid the flatbed trailer orders through the end of the year. Back to you, Kevin.
Yeah, I think we're all, we want that industrial recovery to start, and those flatbed numbers make it really good. That's Alan Adler. You can find this and all the headlines on FreightWaves.com. If you're not a subscriber to the newsletter, you can go to FreightWaves.com and sign up for that. The noon newsletter gives you all the news of the day. Now, a lot of those orders are in anticipation of more freight coming in through the port of Long Beach and LA out on the West Coast. And Greg Miller has an article detailing the loads coming in, or the ships coming in on that front from American Shipper, right?
Yeah, Kevin, the pileup of ships offshore of the San Pedro Bay outside of the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, as well as the onshore terminal congestion, have reached epic proportions. And it's looking like it's only going to get worse in the coming weeks. As of midday Wednesday, there were 91 ships in port in LA, 46 at berth, 45 anchored. Of those, 56 were container ships. Between Wednesday, which was yesterday, and Saturday in front of us, 19 more ships are set to arrive, with the same number set to depart. Ships have effectively filled up all of the anchorage spots off of the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, and are now taking up 6 of the 10 contingency anchorages in the next town south of Huntington Beach. The Port of LA's digital forecasting tool, The Signal, indicates that there is no let-up in sight. Imports are expected to rise from 144,000 TEUs this week to 158,000 next week, and then 183,000 TEUs in the final week of January. The primary cause for the congestion is port labor. Terminals are working with limited labor and are splitting shifts. The shortage is affecting the turnaround time for truckers, as well as the interterminal transfers and the number of port appointments available each day. As a result of the lack of terminal space, there's a constant switching between terminals that's leading to containers ending up in the wrong terminal, which is further exacerbating the problem. liner companies traditionally cancel a lot of sailings during the Chinese New Year period, which is upcoming, to account for the decreased Chinese imports. If they did so in 2021, it would certainly allow the U.S. terminals some time to clear some of that congestion at the ports. However, it doesn't seem like that's likely. Unfortunately for the terminals, liners are opting against canceling sailings during the Chinese New Year period next month. Ports could see congestion relief if the U.S. consumer demand slowed, but that is not looking to occur either. Consumer demand was strong throughout the holidays, and now with another $600 stimulus check passed at the end of December and the potential for a third stimulus check upon the new administration's first couple months, consumer demand is pretty strong. Kevin.
Yeah, it's interesting, Andrew.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's interesting, Andrew, because there's a lot of seems to be a lot of flux here, right? I mean, it's the second stimulus package passed. Will there be that third one? It looks like that's probably likely that would happen with the new administration stating that they would do it. And then you've got the vaccine. So does that's starting to roll out and doing fairly well. So does that change the buying pattern, but keep those imports high? It's kind of like we're in this almost like this kind of cut the engines for a second and see what's happening as these things still flow. Because even the imports that you're talking about rise from 144,000 TEUs to 158,000 to 183. In that article, it also states that that's not exactly new arrivals. That's workload, right, of imports that are there. Let's just clarify. I mean, imports are not slow right now. They're there. There's 32 ships there. But as they back up, those additional ones become imports the next week.
Right. The one thing I would say is that I took a look at the National Retail Federation's Global Port Tracker. They do a good job of managing and monitoring the retail imports. And I compared that to some of the retail sales data over the past year. And it seems we had an incredible run up of retail imports over the back half of the year. But if you take the entire year as a whole, retail imports were only up a percentage point and a half above 2019 levels. So I think there's still a lot of retail freight coming in that's going to be inventory restocking. And that's not to do anything to do with the current demand that's going to stay elevated through until we have vaccines. I do believe there's going to be a mix shift back to services. I've been adamant about this on point of sale and on Great Quarter Guys, that I do see this generational release of pent up demand for services, and that's going to affect the goods demand. But given the fact that retailers are still so far behind in inventory restocking, inventory levels are still so low, I still think there's plenty of room to run just on the restocking thesis in the first few months of the year.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, Andrew. I'm looking forward to your analysis on all this stuff. I know you geek out over this stuff, and watching that trend of how that mix stays with the e-commerce when vaccine and like you said, that pent up demand for services starts to get into that mix. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So speaking of analysis, Matt Henning, Dooner, and Eric Thornton are on LinkedIn doing analysis of Andrew's couch, the size of his couch to his TV, and his dog running around in the background. So you can check that out once you get off air, Andrew. There's bad news or sad news about a truck driver in Missouri, and Clarissa Haas has that out on FreightWaves.com. What are the details on that, Andrew?
Yeah, the details are there is a truck driver that remains hospitalized more than a week after he was shot multiple times by Missouri State Highway Patrol troopers following what police are calling an attempted ambush. Investigators claim Tayland Rahim, 27 years old, of Gladstone, Missouri, drove to the agency's local headquarters with an assault-style rifle and fired several rounds into the ground and into the parking lot around 9:40 p.m. on January 4th. Sergeant Andy Bell, a spokesperson for the Highway Patrol, said Rahim was shot after he disobeyed troopers' commands to stop and drop his weapon. Bell said investigators are unsure of the truck driver's motive since they have been unable to interview Rahim, who is listed in stable condition at a Kansas City hospital. Court documents show that Rahim's only interaction with Missouri law enforcement was back in October of 2019 when he was ticketed at a weigh station for being overweight. The misdemeanor offense cost Rahim $135. Prosecutors have not been able to charge Rahim since they haven't been able to interview him. He's still at the hospital. We expect to hear more on this story in the coming days. Follow Clarissa Haas for all the new updates on FreightWaves.com. Kevin.
Thanks, Andrew. Let's talk about some e-commerce and Walmart and temperature controlled box groceries. What do we have there?
Yeah, I've had I had a really fun time watching all of these Walmart pilots. We've got another one from them. They're doing their best to bridge that final mile from facility to final customer. We see them do things with autonomous vehicles, with drones. The next one now is these temperature controlled boxes that people can buy from Home Valet and place outside their home. So beginning in the spring of this year, customers in Bentonville, Arkansas, in the company's hometown, can choose to purchase one of these Home Valet boxes. More or less, this is a temperature-controlled box that relies on the Internet of Things. It pairs with a mobile app that allows for temperature control as well as unlocking and relocking of the system. More or less, this is going to allow 24/7 delivery of goods, of perishable goods, to customers' homes. Walmart said that they're not have no plans to focus on 24/7 delivery, but it does have a nice ring to it. So I could see that being opening up down the road. The implications of the smart box, of this idea from Home Valet, have big implications for could be a boon, excuse me. These new technologies could be a boon for e-commerce and other digital grocery providers like Fresh Direct or Blue Apron or Peapod or Instacart or any of those. This is something that's been ongoing for Walmart with their grocery delivery. They've had a lot of gig economy and third-party providers leave them and opt not to deliver their groceries. The latest one was back this year when Skipcart out of Texas stopped delivering. The CEO, Ben Jones, said the grocery model does not work. It doesn't work now, and it's not going to work in 6 months. We are all losing money hand over fist. Walmart obviously believes that pain is worth the gain. They're taking a page out of Amazon's book here, out of their profitless book, and trying to push towards a greater level of e-commerce and grocery delivery. And this is a smart move. That despite all of the explosive growth in e-commerce this year, online grocery sales still lag almost every other major category. It's only about 12% of total sales. But it is the one category that has maintained its level of e-commerce penetration since the peak back in March. So online grocery demand is here to stay. Walmart's just finding new ways to deliver goods without them perishing on its way.
It's interesting. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, Andrew, it's interesting to me, and I want your take on this, because it occurs to me that by doing this, right, and you have the people saying the delivery people, we're out of groceries because everybody's losing money. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. Well, enter the ability to deliver 24/7, and now getting people to buy online. They're already used to the convenience and they like that, but now setting a scheduled delivery or a time frame becomes a premium service, because now Walmart can deliver, or anybody really, once they get these home delivery boxes, these Home Valet, whatever they are there in place, they can deliver 24/7. So now that you can upcharge for windows or specific times or deadlines, right? I mean, it doesn't bring in a new level of different service categories for revenue streams for grocery delivery, e-commerce style?
Precisely. There's actually additional benefits as well. So there's 3 different container compartments within the Home Valet box. Each can be set to a different temperature. Each can be opened up at a different time, meaning if you have deliveries coming from Uber Eats and you have one coming from Instacart, they can both be in the same box but be delivered at different times. You think about that from Instacart's point of view. They can now bundle together deliveries from different shops to go to the same location at the same time. So it opens up a lot of opportunities and possibilities for optimizing and making more efficient the delivery of groceries.
So let's keep on e-commerce. Point of sale, your newsletter comes out at, I believe, 1 p.m. today. What do we have in the point of sale today?
Yeah, so I covered 3 major topics. The first one being that Walmart, the Walmart partnership with Home Valet and its implications to grocery delivery. I also covered a little bit this recent analysis from Gartner. They did analysis of the difference between logistics and freight costs of e-commerce retailers and physical retailers. So those that derive more than 50% of their sales from online channels typically have about double the freight and logistics costs as a percentage of sales than their physical counterparts. I go into some of the strategies that retailers are implementing to minimize and control the last mile fulfillment cost. The first one is packaging. Amazon has led the way here with its frustration-free packaging and its Amazon Packaging Certificate Award. They've been able to eliminate 33% of outbound packaging weight since 2015, since implementing this. Retailers are also rethinking how their fulfillment and delivery methods work with each other. Nearly every major retailer has rolled out BOPIS and curbside pickup or even external lockers. But at the same time, they are actually rolling back free delivery and free returns. So you're seeing this caveat, this change off that these retailers are having. They're finding new ways to fulfill while also taking out of some of their most unprofitable ways to do it. So I think through a couple of the ways that retailers can incentivize their customers, both economically and environmentally, to kind of nudge them towards what they prefer to be the optimal fulfillment method. And then the second one, the last story I talk about, is just a recent survey from Convey. They did a survey of holiday shoppers and basically said that despite the delays and the limited store operations and the fulfillment challenges that many shoppers had to go through, we had an overwhelmingly positive experience with our holiday shopping. In fact, 88% of shoppers said that this year's experience was as good, if not better, than last year, with nearly a third saying it was better than last year. The survey also said that the problems that many of the retailers and the transportation providers had warned of, they did come to fruition. There were delays. Many people, more than half of people, said that they received a package later than expected, but that certainly didn't ruin Christmas as some had feared. That's because a lot of them had revised their expectations. Retailers did a really good job of being transparent and upfront about those delays, and that smoothed out the whole process, making it better for consumers. So Point of Sale is going to have those three stories today: the Walmart partnership, the Gartner e-commerce retail transportation costs, and then also the survey from Convey. You can go and sign up for that at freightwaves.com/POS. Comes out on Mondays and Thursdays at 1:00.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Once you get off air, go to LinkedIn, look at the discussion on your couch and dog. It's fascinating. They're still talking about it. So. but
Will do.
now, we'll do. Now let's flip
Thanks,
over
Andrew.
to Nick Austin. Yeah, now let's flip over to Nick Austin and get a weather update for today.
Hi guys, hello everybody watching us out there today. Unfortunately, we do have some dreadful and downright dangerous weather for truckers heading into the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes over the next couple of days, with blizzard conditions likely in some areas. So let's get right to it. Sonar critical events map. You see the radar up there, and it doesn't look so bad up in that region now, but it's going to get worse. We do have some areas of snow and freezing rain. It's going to become a bit more widespread. It's going to get more intense later today, and it's going to be a slow-moving storm lasting through the entire day tomorrow and likely fading not until tomorrow evening. So we're talking about areas of heavy snowfall and gusty winds with a lot of blowing snow from the eastern Dakotas across Minnesota, Wisconsin, a good chunk of Illinois, just about all of Iowa, especially the western half, even far northern Missouri, parts of eastern Nebraska. That's where we're going to see the most impact from the storm. So we're talking about Interstate 90, 94, 35, 29, lots of issues with occasional whiteout conditions here. The worst blizzard conditions are probably going to be in these areas that are shaded in purple, from the I-29 corridor right along the straddling eastern South Dakota, western Minnesota, down to near Omaha. Kansas City probably won't see bad blizzard conditions, but there'll be some blowing and drifting snow down there. Des Moines, Iowa. So all of these areas in purple, though, are under blizzard warnings. So that's for several areas. So pretty major issues here. And again, it's going to be a slow-moving storm, so it's not really going to fade until maybe late afternoon or evening on Friday. So this is a 2-day event, and it's already happening. When you see the warnings come up there, that means it's already happening or it's about to happen. Now, even outside of those areas where the blizzard is going to hit, where it's not going to snow, there's still going to be a threat for high winds across other areas of the rest of the Dakotas, I should say, as well as the rest of Nebraska, parts of Kansas, eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, eastern Montana, all these areas where I'm highlighting. Even though they're not going to get snow out of this, the winds are going to be fierce, 70 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts, high risk for rollovers, deadheading, carrying light loads, not going to be a good idea through those areas, or of course through the region where the blizzard is likely going to hit. Now, I'll be back a little later in the show with a recap of the weather, and we'll also talk about an article right now on FreightWaves.com about 5 of the top major weather events from 2020. See you then.
Thank you very much, Nick, for that update. And Eric Serta and Diego Andres Gamio are on LinkedIn Live right now. So is Mark Johnson coming in right now. Well, Michael Vincent, let's check in with Zach Strickland on the freight markets and see what's happening today.
Yeah, let's see what size couch he's got.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, the freight markets continue to act somewhat inconsistently with year-over-year, patterns. So we saw tender rejections fall out of Christmas, which is in line with what we normally see. But now they've stopped and they're hovering just below 23% right now in terms of overall tender rejection. So it's normally we see tender rejections fall throughout the month of January. They kind of can hover at times and stall out, but this is still one of those very tight markets. We're seeing tender rejection rates above 22%. And more interestingly, tender volumes have actually increased as tender rejection rates have come down. So demand side is still very strong right now in the market. And that basically means that we're probably going to find a bottom around this 22% level for a period of time. And looking at imports into the future, it looks like we still have a lot of backlogs around the ports. We had a ton of pull forward. Demand is still going to be relatively strong, depending on how the sense of urgency for shippers here over the next little bit is going to behave. Obviously warehouses and warehouse capacity is tightened significantly. So I do think that we are going to see this pattern kind of persist throughout the first quarter. Now, there is the first hint, looking at some of our bookings data, as you and I talked about earlier, Mike, that we might see this pattern shift towards the end of March or maybe even in March to some extent as some of these bookings have started to fall down. And I was talking to Henry Byers this morning about that, and he was talking to the point that, some of the imbalances in the market have actually contributed to this, decline in orders or bookings. And keep in mind, bookings are more of a future, like a leading indicator of freight market activity, as this is stuff that will not hit the United States for another 18 to 21 days. So he says that a combination of pull forward anticipation, that behavior that happened at the late part of 2020, as well as the inability for shippers to, secure capacity, has really contributed to a little bit of inconsistency and bottlenecking in these supply chains, and shippers just aren't importing as much volume or trying to import as much volume as they did. And that's going to potentially materialize here in the next couple of months or so.
Thank you very much, Zach. We're going to get to a lot of supply and demand and inventory levels with our guests coming up here in the next few minutes. So it'll be interesting to get their take on what Zach just said. You know what today is? It's Thursday, and that means Anthony Smith has some initial jobless claims and unemployment numbers for us. So let's go to Anthony and get his take.
Hi, Kevin, Michael. So it's Thursday, and as you know, that means new updates for initial jobs claims. And unfortunately, we saw an increase to 965,000 initial jobs claims over the last week. And so this is a substantial rise and surpassing all consensus estimates that were going into this most recent week. This is actually the highest number that we've seen since August of 2020. And that was really kind of when the pandemic was heating up. Again, it's a far cry from the 6 million plus that we saw in 2020, but this is not the direction that we wanted to be moving in or should be moving in. A lot of this is going to be tied to more restrictions being put into place for a lot more states, and even in more open states like Florida, Texas, we're seeing job losses there as well. So it's really kind of widespread throughout the country. The other big news item is that we saw some increasing in CPI, Consumer Pricing Index. So we saw some inflation. A lot of that's going to be tied into gas prices that were increasing. So that's really where 60% of it's coming from. Without that, it was just around a 0.1% increase, so nothing too substantial. But really the big news item as of this morning is going to be coming from those initial jobs claims. Now, looking at the overall economy, employment was the one area that we're really anticipating to really be lagging going into 2021. And this is what we're seeing right now. When we're looking at these initial jobs claims, it's going to be the considerable headwind moving on throughout the year. We're looking at that. We're looking at unemployment. We're looking at continuing claims, which is also increasing and not really having any kind of substantial movement down. This is really a telltale sign for the trajectory of the recovery. Now, other areas like retail sales are going to be slowing as a result. We are still waiting on potential stimulus packages that might be put into place by the oncoming President Biden. So when we're seeing what kind of stimulus might be put in place and the considerable rollout of this vaccine, that would be something that would help the trajectory of overall employment benefits coming in and the pace of recovery. But that's going to be the biggest update as of today. Those initial jobs claims coming out. Inflation is moving up, but a lot of it's going to be tied to gas prices. So nothing really too concerning right there as of now. But we'll be sure to keep you updated on all the latest next Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And I'm glad Anthony was on here, so I'm not the only one with the sink in the background here on camera.
Yeah.
But
very
side,
nice. Very nice.
Well, let's bring on Mark Solomon now. He's a journalist here at FreightWaves. He covers parcel, warehousing, kind of distribution centers, and DHL reported earnings yesterday. So we'll get the breakdown from him on earnings and kind of the returns and kind of the Shipageddon that parcel carriers were thinking and what that turned out to be. Mark.
Good afternoon, guys. DHL had some great numbers yesterday. They pre-announced or preliminary results were terrific. Most importantly, and this is sort of gauging the general health of the market, DHL upped their guidance for 2022, meaning that the numbers they were expecting to see in 2022, they will probably achieve in 2021. And I'm talking about the bottom line numbers. The 2022 numbers clearly indicate that the market will remain strong for at least a year, maybe more. DHL is arguably the global proxy for air express, for global forwarding, for supply chain management. They are probably the #1 global brand. And the numbers were very good, and they speak highly to the continued success of e-commerce, air express, freight forwarding, and just terrific numbers from them. And their formal numbers come out on March 9th. But what they posted yesterday will be in line with what is officially announced on that date. Regarding the Shipageddon, Parcelgeddon that was forecast for the peak season, it did not really come to pass. Clearly, there were dislocations. People were, to some degree, concerned about getting their shipments on Christmas Day or by Christmas Day. But for the most part, companies hit their delivery targets. They were, in some cases, as good, if not better, than they were in the 2019 peak. And it really was, I think, a tribute or a testament to the amount of time that FedEx, UPS, the Postal Service, Amazon, and the regional parcel carriers put into making sure that they would have enough capacity and would have enough bandwidth to get goods to their retailer customers, end users, the consumers, before Christmas. It's also testament to the performance of the retailers. The retailers made it very clear through significant and consistent messaging that people should buy their holiday gifts early. Don't wait till Black Friday. Try to get orders in the pipeline as early as the second to third week of October. That not only gave the carriers enough time to plan their networks, but it also was very important, very pivotal in enabling the carriers to smooth out what in the past had been very, very bumpy weeks during the peak season.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. Mark, what is it? Is it Mike? I just wanted to comment on that a little bit, just because, it reminds me a little bit of, my days in LTL and asset delivery, running trucking companies and delivering and end of the line terminals back in the late 80s, early 90s, et cetera, where, you call the customer and say, hey, I got a shipment for you next Thursday. It's coming in. It's this and this. And they say, okay, that's a scheduled appointment. So you're managing expectations to really hit those numbers. Is it fair to say that these carriers hitting these numbers and the shipment getting that didn't happen is really about managing expectations, and they did an excellent job of keeping people informed and letting them know that this could be a bad thing, and that helped really to hit those numbers?
It did. Carriers and retailers were very involved in ensuring that expectations would be set properly and would be realistic. Not only ordering earlier, but cutting carrier slack about getting goods to the consumers on time. It didn't always happen, but the carriers were as close to being perfect given the circumstances as they could possibly be. And the retailers were very, very successful in convincing their customers to be proactive in their ordering, to do it early. And to their credit, consumers cut the carriers and retailers a fair amount of slack given the circumstances of the year. That may not happen next year, but this year, many consumers were tolerant of the situation. They knew about it. This was not a hidden issue. And it goes back to the importance of proactive and consistent messaging throughout the value chain here.
Yes. First of all, Matt Fink and Mark Schaefer, thanks for tuning in here on LinkedIn. Hey, Mark, let's flip over to XPO and talk about XPO for a second. They announced a spinoff not too long ago, and we have a little bit of an update on the progress of that. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah. A couple of days ago, XPO announced that they would have a new head of the logistics business that will be spun off by the end of the year. Malcolm Wilson is the head of, I'm not sure exactly what his title is right off the top, but he is a top executive at XPO Logistics. He will be running the new company effective whenever this transaction closes. And it involves spinning off the logistics business into a separate company. XPO had telegraphed that the company would be run by executives that are currently in charge of the logistics operation at XPO. At this point, that's as far as XPO has gone in progressing to the goal of basically creating two companies: the transportation company that will remain under the auspices of Brad Jacobs, and the logistics business, which will be effectively run by the top management in the logistics operation today.
Very good. Very good. And also, really quickly, we have a consolidation among consultants in the parcel space. Do we have an acquisition there?
Right. Typically, we don't talk about this, but parcel consultants play an important role in helping shippers optimize their spending on parcel services, which from some shippers it amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars. And they've become extremely instrumental in helping shippers save significant sums of money. And doesn't always sit well with the carriers, but that's just the way it is. Parcel consultants were very, very busy last year due to COVID and the changes that Ecommerce wrought on parcel operations. So we had a company called Transportation Insight looking to beef up their parcel consulting business and portfolio by acquiring an Atlanta firm named Spend Management Experts. So from what I hear, the discussions had been underway for about a year. They were just consummated. It would not surprise me to see future tie-ups as companies looking to acquire parcel consulting expertise and customer lists go after those businesses, those consultancies that can provide that service and provide that portfolio to the buyers.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much. We're running short on time. Mark, how does our audience reach out, learn more about your writing, have story ideas, source information for you?
Well, my work email is msolomon@freightwaves.com. That's the best way to reach me. I'm very proactive with that. I do not ignore emails from readers, prospective readers, and current readers because they are our bread and butter, and I appreciate the time they take to read.
Good. That's good to know. I hate if you ignore them, but thank you very much, Mark, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark. You will not be ignored.
You will not be ignored.
Who do we
He is
have?
really good at responding to emails, right? So
Yeah, no,
if you have a story
certainly
idea,
is.
reach out to him, and he's entertaining. He's a wealth of knowledge in this space. He's been doing it for a long time, and no one knows more than Mark does about it. So, let's talk about raw materials, Vincent. So this gives us the leading indicators. We always love talking to Ken Sherman, who's the president at Intellitrans. And how are you doing today, Ken?
We got audio there.
We might have a little bit of audio issues with Ken.
We do a little bit. So go ahead.
Yeah. So let's talk about raw materials and not necessarily raw materials, but going back to the port and the stack up and the lineup out in the port. You had some really good information. You shared a little bit earlier with Andrew. Can you expand on that a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, well, and Zach brought it up a little bit because we were looking at it this morning, and you see all the stack up, these 32 ships that are at anchor in San Pedro, and they're going down. And I never knew this. They're kind of like parking spots, right? They have to take into those 6 spots that are down off of Huntington Beach, et cetera, which is kind of interesting that they have anchorage spots. But that makes sense when you're trying to control traffic in a port like that. I just never knew that, but we see these things going up, but looking at bookings that are 7 days out, et cetera, they're starting to come down. And so talking with Henry Byers and some others and looking at that, it starts to make sense. There's kind of this pull forward, right? And when we were talking to like Chris Richards at Steam and Steve Ferreira, et cetera, and others, you get all this information about how 6 to 8 weeks booking time and stuff like that. And it starts to make sense that when you look at these bookings dropping off, that's going to affect, like Zach said, and Henry has given that information as well, is, when you get into March and April. And that's really consistent from what we were hearing from the industry experts even 2 or 3 months ago, talking about how it would be heavy imports through the Lunar New Year or through Chinese New Year and into the second quarter through the first quarter. So it makes perfect sense that we would start to see those bookings start to come down right now, as we had that pull forward before the Chinese New Year, given the incredible cycle times of 6 to 8 weeks to book a container out to get stuff moving and a backlog that you have.
Yeah, definitely. And then that runs into the next topic we're going to do, which is inventories, right? Because this is building inventories, selling through inventories. And we have Laurance Alvarado ready to go now to talk about warehousing and inventory. And Laurance, thanks for joining us today. If you can give our audience kind of a recap of your introduction and your company.
You bet. So WARECAP.com, and guys, great to be here again. But WARECAP.com, we are largely viewed as the Airbnb and Zillow of industrial real estate. So anything that has to do with the fractionalization of warehouses, of parking lots, yards, and anything industrial, things that you don't put a bunch of people in to live in. So that's what we do. And we certainly see, I heard you guys talking about the LA Long Beach, the staging of the traffic. But, what we're seeing, obviously, the same thing you guys are seeing right now is tightness in the market, especially within the storage and the things that are inside the building. Where we are seeing growth, however, is in the parking lots and uses of staging freight, for trailers, tractor trailers. And I think this is kind of an outgrowth of what we're seeing. We have a bunch of material that is staged in the ports. Warehouses continue to be at historic occupancies with 1.5% to 2% occupancy softness or availability. So what is happening is that people are using the trailers and the containers as active storage. Well, they need to put them somewhere, and what's happening is that they're putting them in parking lots. We just signed a deal to have Iron Mountain over 100 different parking lots, as an example. We are seeing an awful lot of use. We see this trend continuing for quite some time, especially as the Chinese economy kind of heats up, as orders continue to heat up, and so we're seeing some interesting growth patterns here.
That's interesting. On the parking lot side, is that for drop and hook trailers?
That's correct.
For the staging, and what we went through the headlines to begin with. New trailer orders are out for December. If you take the entire fourth quarter, it's a record fourth quarter for trailer orders. I guess that feeds into that narrative as well, Laurance.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And people are getting very, very creative. And, and I think there's a couple of other risks that are hiding in plain sight. And I'm sure you guys have talked about them. But, we also talk about the shortage of manpower and staffing within the warehousing and manufacturing. And, let's also talk about some of the cybersecurity threats, because as you're trying to accommodate for a shortage in staffing, you're trying to look for technology solutions. SolarWinds is kind of that gift that keeps on giving in many respects. And there needs to be, not only this awareness of how the software is integrated from a security perspective, but also how that just contributes on the downstream fulfillment of orders. So a meat and potatoes type of solution, again, is just stick a truck or a trailer, a drop somewhere in a parking lot that's underutilized, and just kind of dispatch to a driver. But there is an awful lot of creativity that I certainly see, that we're seeing within the marketplace.
Yeah. So, Laurance, and that brings me to my question that I wanted to ask you. It begs a question that you can't bastardize drop and hook into extended warehousing and call that a solution, right? So, what's the trend? What's the trend? Where's it go? Is it bullish enough to start building and creating more and more warehousing, or is the solution more of an expansion into your type of space where people have the space and they don't have the creativity or didn't see the foresight to say, hey, wait a minute, I can join up with WARECAP or somebody else and kind of use this stuff as fractionalized, sometimes warehouse type of stuff, earn a little revenue and relieve some of this issue that we have.
That's right. I think, Michael, we're definitely seeing the latter, where people are being creative and they're looking at the fractionalization of existing space. Especially, the big trend right now is on the retail to industrial. We see that specifically within the repurposing of some of the smaller places within the strip malls. But as the larger malls become more abandoned, as there are strengthening existing structures as opposed to building new structures, we see a trend in that respect. We see an awful lot of people, even though money is still cheap, and even though there's an appetite in the logistics world, I think there's an aversion to take on a certain amount of debt on the out years, even as strong a demand that we're seeing within the inventory and storage space. So creativity is going to win. Being scrappy is going to win. Finding places and looking at the costs. The cost sensitivity is not going to go anywhere. The consumer is only going to bear so much of this, and I think people are going to have to look and are continuing to look. We see it right now, coming to WARECAP and looking at not only posting their supply but posting their demand as well, where we can accommodate that two-sided marketplace.
Are we expecting this demand and retail inventories to stay heightened and capacity, warehouse and industrial capacity to be as thin as it is all through 2021? Is this kind of like going through the long term?
Yeah, I think we're going to see actually more of this type of bottlenecks. Quite frankly, especially if you look at some of the government stimulus packages, if you look at people starting to return to work and almost repurposing their jobs in many respects. So we're going to have this interesting amalgamation of continued demand. We're going to have additional stimulus that's going to come into the economy, and the momentum of just getting used to the transactional mechanics of going to and expectations. In fact, our expectations are going to be even higher in terms of the fulfillment. I think that's going to continue on with these pressures that we're seeing. So yes, I do think it's going to continue out through 2021.
Well, thank you very much for that analysis, Laurance. Always a pleasure to have you on. How does our audience reach out and learn more about WARECAP and yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at warecap.com. You could also see us on our LinkedIn page. We're happy to help. We're, again, that two-sided marketplace. You can not only post your demand and peer-to-peer negotiation. Although we love brokers and we work with brokers, we just have had some wonderful, successful deals with brokers. It also allows a principal-to-principal negotiation, and try to streamline this process. So always grateful to be here and talk with you guys. I'm thankful I didn't have to drag out a trumpet or other type of musical instrument this time. But,
next time,
always
brother,
willing to help, always willing to participate. So.
Thank you again, Laurance.
Thank you.
All right, gents, have a good one.
You bet. All right,
Laurance, he's awesome.
Always
man.
a pleasure.
We should have made him bring out the trumpet, but
we should have. He's always a pleasure. I always like talking about warehousing and capacity with Laurance, and I always like talking about raw materials with Ken Sherman. I think we have his audio issues repaired. Can you hear us, Ken?
I think so. Can you hear me, gentlemen?
We can.
Perfectly.
Excellent. We are good to go then. Thank you.
Good.
How are you guys
Can you
today?
give our audience a rundown of Intellitrans and yourself and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Intellitrans is a technology-enabled transportation management services provider, primarily focused on the bulk and break bulk commodity industries. So think, forest products, plastics and chemicals, metals, mining. I've been here for about 18 years now. Prior to that, I spent 16 years at what used to be GE Plastics.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Ken. Everybody's trying to predict what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the industry as far as like we're just talking to Laurance Alvarado at WARECAP and talking to him about, where do you see warehousing going, et cetera. And really, if we look far enough upstream, we can get some really good indicators. What's going on with plastics, with chemicals? What are you seeing? Are we seeing a rebound, a rebirth? Or are we moving forward? What do you see in the trends?
Yeah, so in the shipment data that we're seeing, at the end of last year, we basically got at or slightly above kind of same store sales prior year, which is a good sign because we had dropped to, about 80% of that during the early days of the pandemic. What we saw over the holidays, though, was a steeper drop in the Christmas and New Year's holiday period than we had seen in the prior year or two, and a slower rebound. I'm hopeful that at this point that is day of the week variation and just similar to what we saw on Thanksgiving with a similar occurrence. What I'm hoping is that the shipment volumes rebound to that 100% level. Obviously, some of the earlier speakers talking about leading indicators looking kind of questionable. So, I think a lot of it's going to bank on getting the next set of stimulus packages rolled out and successful deployment of the vaccine, to really make sure that this is not a trend, but more just of a over the holidays blip.
When we look at supply chains in 2020, everyone's looking to make adjustments, to make it more secure, more consistent, and part of that is procurement of raw materials. What kind of trends are you seeing with any changes in strategies on that front?
The biggest thing that we're seeing, within the data that we have access to is the need to diversify or keep a diversified set of carriers and modes to be able to get the product to market. And so what that has led to is having to have the technology in place to be able to sustain that. And, as you think about the trends in transparency, where everyone, kind of wants that Uber-like or Domino's Pizza-like visibility of what's coming at me, what we're seeing is that customers are starting to be more discerning about which of their customers actually value that. So for example, for myself, I'll track Amazon packages coming to my house to make sure that if it's a gift I've purchased, I can grab it before, the recipient of the gift sees it. But if it's a pizza, I really don't care because I'm not going to do much with the fact that it might be 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late. So our customers are doing the same thing. In order to keep a diverse set of ways to get product to market, they're getting more discerning around how they try to obtain that visibility for the customers that really value it or the products that really value it, but making sure that they've got the flexibility in their transportation and supply networks to be able to use folks that maybe don't have the same degree of ability to provide transparency, for shipments that are going to customers that don't require it as much, such as internal inventory moves or less key raw materials. And that helps people, make sure that they're consistently supplying their customers. And it leads into the tie of having the visibility in the execution kind of all in one place.
Laurance, Ken, staying on the topic of the diversification, you're talking about the different carriers and the transparency as well. We started off a lot of our conversation talking about the how the supply chain looks post-pandemic. Now we're not quite post-pandemic. We got resurgence in certain areas, South Africa and so on, even here in the United States, but vaccines starting to come on. And when we talked about that before, the different sourcing of, bringing it back to nearshore or even back to onshoring and back into the United States or North America sourcing, when you start talking about a lot of the things that you are tracking, you can't just choose where you're going to get specific minerals or something. You got to get them from where they are. But there is some variety there. Is there still this pressure to look for changes and diversification in the sourcing in the raw materials sector, or is that kind of fading out as we kind of start to move forward into and get normalized or desensitized to what we're seeing right now?
No, it's pretty much of an ongoing trend. Previously it was really driven by trying to obtain competitive pricing for the products. So if you have two potential suppliers, say of the inbound supply of chlorine, for example, in your prior thinking, that allow you to leverage them against each other to try to get the lowest price of the product. Now people are keeping both of the suppliers on board to make sure that they've got surety of supply in case somebody has a severe outbreak in their facility, or if you look forward into the future, what other disruptions might be that we can't necessarily foresee today, but that might take one supplier out than another. And so there's still that need to do that. It's just more driven by surety of supply than just trying to obtain the lowest total price of the product.
Makes sense. It definitely makes sense. So here we are at January 14th, not January 4th, but January 14th here today. Do you have one bold prediction for 2021?
Oh, a bold prediction for 21.
A bold prediction.
I think what we're going to see is that where I thought before, like let's just take the utilization of technologies that we're using right now, and other things for touchless fulfillment, at order pickup and things like that. So technologies that really helped us sustain through the pandemic. Previously I thought we would come about halfway back, say in business travel, because we're able to do so much with technologies like this that you can cut out some of the meetings. I think the impact is actually going to be much greater. And so if you have a business that is dependent on the old way of doing business and you're just hanging on by the skin of your teeth through the pandemic and hoping things are going to come back to sustain you, I think it's going to be a relatively larger disappointment than I would have thought just like 3 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do too. I do as well. Yeah, that is great stuff. But hey, Ken, we've got to move on. We're out of time on this segment, but thank you so much for being with us and being our guest. And we'll have you on again soon. How do people get more information about Intellitrans and what you're doing there?
Yeah, you can either go to Intellitrans.com or follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Our handle on both of those is simply Intellitrans.
Excellent. Thank you
very
so
much,
much.
Ken.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a great afternoon. Appreciate the time.
You too.
Thanks.
So, Michael, Vincent, let's
Yeah.
talk about some conferences. You want to talk about some conferences? Yeah. Let's talk about our next virtual conference, which is the Sales and Marketing Summit coming up 2 weeks from today. So on January 28th, we are going to be doing a one-day summit virtually on logistics, freight brokerage, carriers, freight tech, everything in the logistics world on sales and marketing. We have some outstanding guests coming in to speak with us. We have Andrew Leto, who's founder of Global Trans and 10-4, now the founder of Emerge. We also have Joe Paluzzi, which is an author, best-selling author on Amazon, a motivational speaker. He's going to be talking to us as well. It's going to be fantastic. We also have Charlie Dahoney, Hope White, Jason Fishman, Toby Howe from The Morning Brew, and of course, Robert Hatchett from Seat My Truck. So we're covering sales and marketing from all angles. Marketing out, Rob's going to talk about marketing out for driver recruiting, which is all exciting stuff. Blythe Brumley from Digital Dispatch and Freight School Playbook. She'll be doing a session as well, and we'll have a lot of live guests. Dooner will be around. I'll be around doing some live content from the desk in the studio at FreightWaves headquarters.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be around as well, my friend.
You will too, yes. You will be around.
I will be around. It'll be interesting. I would imagine a lot of people are trying to figure out how to market. Hey, we have capacity and we give you visibility, right? I mean, that's
exactly right. And if you want to participate, if you're a freight tech company, you want to show off your tech, get in front of your customers as well, you can contact us. You can DM me on LinkedIn directly, or you can email me at Khill, Khill, at FreightWaves.com to reach out and see how you can participate. And I will get you to the right person to talk to here.
Yeah, excellent stuff. You know what else we got coming up is, don't we have something coming up in February? So February 22nd through March 3rd is that Global Supply Chain Week, the virtual event there. So going through everything, Monday through Friday, air cargo, ocean logistics, geopolitical challenges in aerospace, manufacturing, building, construction, food, perishables, consumer packaged goods, retail, you name it, it will be covered in depth. And divided out by the different days. So that is going to be great. And you'll be able to hear from, the thought leaders and the movers and shakers in the industry. Because, when you're talking global supply chain, Kevin, you got to be talking about all the different types of modes, right? It gets infinitely more difficult and intricate.
It does.
Let's say.
It's very intricate, and there's 7 full days of content. Again, if you want to participate in that, speak, get your name out, show off your tech. Same thing. DM me, shoot me an email, and I'll get you to the right person here at FreightWaves to get everything set up for you on that. So, again, a great time. Tomorrow, What the Truck? Tomorrow, What the Truck? Michael Vincent, what do we have? It seems Michael Vincent can't hear me, so What the Truck will be in at 12 p.m. tomorrow with Dooner and the Dude talking about
I'm back.
Some great guests. You're back? Very
I
good.
am back, yeah.
So what's on What the Truck tomorrow?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, tomorrow noon live. Hey, man, catch it. It's going to be another awesome one. This is our first week of 3 what the trucks per week, right? The audience demanding it, and we're providing it. So yeah, we've got so the Tive CEO, Krenar Kamoni, to talk about shipment problem prevention. Forger CEO Matt Silver is on talking about he's got some new carrier tools to show off, which is going to be great. Always good to have Matt Silver on and talk about what they're doing there. Open Docs, Jeff Booth, love the guys at Open Doc. Jeff Booth is on, and he's got a mission to fix doc scheduling, right, which is extremely important. And then we've also got a country artist play it forward. Jeremiah Craig is going to play it forward with a few tunes with us, man. It's going to be killer.
Perfect. And you can get all these shows on FreightCast, wherever you download your podcast. You can find FreightCast, and I think we are running out of time, coming up to the outro. So here we go. Again, FreightCast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you can pick up With the Truck and Midday Market Update. Put that coffee down.